Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Hello, blockchain fans. Welcome back to the Blockchain Show. This is episode 191. For all you Ethereum fans, we've got a treat, an interview with Jack Leahy from Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, interviewed by none other than Steve Anderson, the co-founder of this podcast.
Hey, Steve, this is Jack Leahy. I'm the membership director for the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. I'm really happy to be here today. Thanks for having me on. Again, Jack Leahy at the EEA. The EEA is really focused around enabling organizations to adopt and use Ethereum technology in their daily business operations. We're really focused on empowering the ecosystem more generally within the overall Ethereum ecosystem. And personally, from a background perspective, I come from the world of enterprise technology consulting and sales. I've done a number of large implementations and deployments with a number of Fortune 500 organizations, spanning across from DevOps strategy to cloud operationalization to supply chain inventory optimization via learning models and artificial intelligence. And so I have a pretty widespread enterprise consulting background, as I had mentioned, most notably around the Microsoft stack, but have done work across Splunk, VMware, really across most of the relatively traditional IT architectural stacks. And in 2017, I started to get more and more interested in the crypto decentralized computing space, and started to get more interested overall from an Ethereum perspective, and started to pay really close attention to how many enterprises and the people that I was interfacing with were really developing on Ethereum and the overall platform. And again, the most recent stint that I had was largely focused on consulting around ServiceNow and the Microsoft stack. And I saw how much Microsoft was investing into their Azure Dev Kit, predicated on the Ethereum ecosystem largely. And I started just to pay more close attention to, again, how many organizations were really building within Ethereum, and had the opportunity late in 2019 to go headfirst into the Ethereum ecosystem and within the blockchain world, and got the opportunity to take over as a membership director at the EEA starting in January. And so 2020 has been quite an interesting year, and been really knees deep ever since.
Really glad you were able to make it to the podcast today. I'm excited to hear about what you've experienced in the Ethereum ecosystem and what things are going on at the EEA. I don't know a ton about the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. Maybe a little background. From my perspective, there wasn't much thoughts about when crypto first came out, of making this really tailored to enterprise until Ethereum came out with smart contracts and things along that nature. And then the enterprise space really took to Ethereum in ways that I didn't imagine initially. Could you tell me a little bit more about the EA and what it is and who are the members, and how does one become a member, and the ultimate goal of the organization?
Absolutely, Steve. That's well said. And you're spot on as far as enterprises building in Ethereum. And I think that's largely predicated on many of the technological foundations and the backbone of Ethereum, and it being more of a developer-focused, application development-focused blockchain computing system. And as a result of that, that's why there's been such a widespread adoption from enterprises and more emerging technology organizations alike. And from an EEA perspective, it really originated with some founding members back in 2017. Some of those included Consensus, JP Morgan, Intel, a number of others who are still very involved within the EEA, as well as a number of other organizations. And what they're really focused on is having an ecosystem of best practices to build within Ethereum, from both a private permission blockchain perspective to a public mainnet perspective as well. And the EA was largely built on the Enterprise Ethereum specification, which we are now nearing version 6 of it, and the specification is finalized, which we're really proud of. And that's really kind of morphed into the whole genesis of like Quorum that's been built at Consensus and JP Morgan, now formally done under Consensus. And that's where a lot of the work had been predicated on in the past. And organizations join again just to be with really like an expert network of people to kind of collaborate on the things that they're challenged with within their organization, and how to take some of the internal capital and resources that we have to our disposal and how to leverage that more effectively within one's own business. And so we've seen a number of different creations within the EEA, from Quorum, which was largely built within the EEA, the Token Taxonomy Initiative and Framework. So frameworks around token taxonomy and building out smart contracts more effectively. From the baseline protocol, which is hugely important right now and is gaining just a ton of momentum and excitement within the industry. And now more, again, bringing in ETH Trust, which we're incredibly excited about. And that was just announced on this past month, largely focused on creating a registry around safe smart contracts so that users and customers that we interface with can be more confident and reliable within the smart contracts that they are leveraging and utilizing.
So let's talk a bit. Let's go back to Quorum. Would you say that Quorum is kind of the biggest win for the enterprise space? And what exactly is Quorum? I have a little bit of understanding that it was developed, I think, initially by JP Morgan Chase, and then they hired Consensus to do it. And now, did JP Morgan Chase purchase that aspect of Consensus, or are they working together? And Quorum is kind of it's a side chain to Ethereum, or is it a completely separate, based off of Ethereum blockchain?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I do justice to this, and I know that the Consensus team and some others within the EA could even speak more intelligently and effectively to this. But Quorum is really built on it's a private permission chain. Built on the Enterprise Ethereum specification. And so a number of organizations developed best practices around an Enterprise Ethereum standard that could be trusted and relied upon within organizations. And a number of these organizations were the kind of the genesis and the creators of this. And JP Morgan was largely behind the creation of Quorum early, with in collaboration within members of the EA, and notably Consensus, of course. And as of just over the last quarter, I would say, Consensus acquired that in full, and now is partnering even more closely with the JP Morgan blockchain team, if you will, largely led by Christine Moy and the Onyx team there. And there's been a ton of exciting announcements relative to what their team is doing right now. But Consensus has now brought in Quorum. And what we're seeing within the industry is there's such a big movement around utilizing, obviously, the Ethereum public mainnet. And many believe that that's where the future will continue to pull us to. But what we're seeing is actual in live production instances. We've seen the most amount of work predicated around Enterprise Ethereum right now. And Consensus has been a large driver behind that, as well as a number of other organizations. But Consensus has driven that in a large way up to this point in time.
What sort of live projects are actually in the works, as opposed to, and if there aren't any major ones, what sort of testnet type, not testnet, but proof of concept type stuff is going on with regards to that?
Yeah, so I'll give a good example that just kind of came up and I got more educated on this week. So again, within the EEA, the great thing is that I have the fortuitous opportunity to see all the different projects within these different organizations and the things that they're focused on and building on. But at the same point in time, as I continue to get more spun up within the industry, I'm still getting closer to intimately what it is that they're exactly doing. And a perfect example of that was just in the last couple of weeks. I've known Galileo Platforms within the EEA as a member for a while now, but I've just become more intimately understanding to what they're doing. And they're really enabling the insurance ecosystem to engage citizens more in a digital way. And so they're utilizing the Enterprise Ethereum specification to connect their participants in the insurance ecosystem through more of a digitalized client experience. And they're utilizing the Enterprise Ethereum specification to do that right now for the insurance industry.
And how does using the the Enterprise Ethereum specification help the insurance industry? Why is it better than the status quo?
That's a excellent question. So one big kind of backer behind that are just new opportunities of business creation within a lot of these platforms. So as we're seeing around the whole idea around DeFi and now enterprise DeFi moving into more of the kind of the concept, if you will, the enterprise taking some of the best practices that have been being created within DeFi and all this innovation that we're seeing within DeFi transpires, creating new business opportunities in many of the same traditional marketplaces that we've seen. And so for like Galileo Platforms, for example, around the insurance industry, it creates like new channels and segments. Utilizing enterprise Ethereum specifications should ultimately reduce errors and costs associated to some of the transactions that are occurring within the network. Another pretty efficient product innovation overall, a deeper level of accuracy from a data and analytics perspective, and the fact of utilizing the private permission chain. You have confidence and reliability in the data that is permeating amongst those participants that are in the overall, that are leveraging that platform itself.
So Galileo Platforms is a kind of an interesting company, and they're building blockchain solutions for insurance. Pretty cool stuff. You mentioned the ETH trust.
That's accurate. Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So as we continue to see Ethereum become the global settlement layer, permeating across the financial industry and perhaps across the world as we continue to move forward, there's different levels of security risk baked into these smart contracts. And up to this point in time, there's really not been a good way to tell the level of security and reliability in a smart contract and a transaction that's been made. And so what this is ultimately the endeavor here within ETH Trust that has already been started to be built by Tom Lindemann, who's been with MythX and with Consensus Strategic Initiatives, as well as a couple other organizations, QuantStamp and Visio, and a number of others, are building a registry system that really records which smart contracts have been rigorously trusted for security vulnerabilities. And so, again, as I mentioned before, it'll really give users and customers a level of trust and confidence in the smart contracts that they engage with on a day-to-day basis.
You had mentioned, DeFi, and I was wondering if you could maybe unpack what is DeFi. I've heard it described as basically anything that runs on Ethereum. Why is Ethereum taking over the DeFi space? What are the certain aspects of DeFi that you find most interesting, or that the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance is working on? Is it just the Ethereum Trust? Just unpack DeFi a bit for us.
I think within the blockchain space and the enterprise world, and as well as within Ethereum, there was the desire to find the foundation of what would be the first thing to go mainstream that would gain a level of traction and adoption to bring in a new creation of developers, people that are interested in the overall ecosystem, and over time are a confidence in what Ethereum and the blockchain space was creating. And DeFi has been the mechanism to doing that. And it started small, and over time it's become really this massive whale, if you will. As far as like the main primary use cases gained a level of global adoption. And what we're seeing now is the financial industry going through a new morphosis, if you will, going through just a total change in the way traditional finance has typically been done and the way in which they've serviced their consumers in the past. And now we're seeing this whole concept around DeFi and utilizing benefits of decentralization and the breaking up of central intermediaries and kind of the middlemen people in between the process to create more self-sovereignty, individuality as far as owning their financial services, digital identities over time, and so on and so forth. And so from a DeFi perspective, again, we started to see this evolution, and now we've just seen so many organizations being built on the concepts of DeFi. And so a lot of them have been built on taking some of the best practices that we've seen and building new strategies and kind of innovating on DeFi strategies to make more DeFi composability, if you will. And so what we're seeing now is a composability amongst the DeFi industry in which these type of solutions can work effectively with one another, and they're building on top of each other. So there's not necessarily like the competition problem, but there's a little bit of the co-opetition problem. And so they're working through that over time. But at the same time, a lot of these kind of new companies and technologies that we're seeing created within DeFi are complements of one another. And because of the composability in these smart contracts and in DeFi overall, we are seeing the creation of just new markets in entirety. And what I believe, and what some of the people that work very closely within the EEA believe, is that we very well may see that 2021 may be the year of enterprise DeFi. And what I mean by that is taking some of the concepts and strategies that are happening within the DeFi industry and taking that and bringing them into more of the traditional IT systems and the way in which these organizations are run, and trying to take some of those practices and ingesting them into their currently run IT strategies or operating strategies more generally.
Interesting. Is you think DeFi is the reason for all the price increase of Ethereum and Bitcoin? I know that prices kind of largely irrelevant to the amount of goods that this technology can provide the world, but it's always fun to talk about, especially with the bull run that's happening right now. There's companies like was it MicroStrategy that bought 450 million, Square bought 50 million worth of Bitcoin. Do you think who do you think the first company would buy Ethereum to have on their books would be, and when that might happen? Just talk about those type of things.
It's a great question. That's a great question. I think a lot of Ethereum advocates and people in the community have been keeping their ear low to the ground to pay attention to such. We're seeing Grayscale. They have these Ethereum trusts that they're building out in a huge way, and they're a huge whale in the overall ecosystem, investing heavily in Ethereum. And I think they are a good example of it. We shall see. This is something that I pay relatively close attention to, but it's not something that I'm like so in tune with. But I do think that we're seeing a quick evolution of now with this bull run that's transpiring. We are seeing more bring on the books from a Bitcoin perspective. I think very soon we are going to see the transition and understanding of Ethereum being the primary blockchain that's going to be the global settlement layer for the future. And there's going to be a number of whales and large institutional investors and organizations that start investing more heavily in Ethereum. ETH, I should say more specifically.
Yeah, might be JP Morgan Chase. You had mentioned Grayscale. When I researched their ETFs, it seems like Bitcoin, their Bitcoin trust trades at like between 12 and 20% premium, and their Ethereum trust was, something like 70 or 120% premium. So it's if somebody's listening doesn't know, it's the Ethereum trust allows you to have access to these distributed ledger technologies, the blockchains, coins in like a 401k application, which is pretty hard to do if you want to get exposure to Bitcoin or Ethereum Classic. I think they have Bitcoin Cash and maybe one or two others. Kind of an interesting project, but it certainly trades at a premium over what you could do, buying it at an exchange.
That's a really good point. I'm going to bring us back to, I know I've already mentioned this, but what brought me to the Ethereum ecosystem, of course, I had an interest around Bitcoin and decentralized computing. But what notably brought me to Ethereum is you asked the question of, hey, when do we think that we'll start seeing organizations putting Ethereum on their books? What I do think is transpiring right now are there are large investors, and they're doing them kind of off their own organizational books until they have the approval internal. I think a lot of these institutional investors have actually been compiling a stake in ETH. But furthermore, what brought me here was the fact of the organizations building on Ethereum. And so that in itself is as important as any other factor. And when you see the number of organizations across the world building on Ethereum as a blockchain platform, that's when the innovation starts to transpire within these organizations, and for organizations to better understand the importance of this to their overall organizational strategy as they move forward, but more generally, the just global adoption of this.
And the more enterprises that get on Ethereum, there's the interoperability once it's on the global Ethereum network. You can build these smart contracts, and anybody who is able to can interface with those, and so you kind of have this massive global computing network. So it's truly amazing what Ethereum is capable of. And I always find myself being surprised on what people come up with when they have these open networks. I think like flash loans was something relatively recent that sometimes it's even like the flash loans are an exploit, but they don't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, that's spot on. And, I was talking about, will 2021 become the year of enterprise DeFi? And what I meant by that is a lot of the DeFi composability and strategies that we're seeing in DeFi are starting to permeate within these traditional organizations. And we're just at the forefront of this. And that's why I think this year will be the year of the quote unquote idea of enterprise DeFi. And a perfect example, a number of organizations that are focused on this, some that are kind of out in front leading the discussion and adoption in the industry of this include like Consensus, Microsoft, EY, Unibright, Provide, notably around the baseline protocol. Even before I dig a little bit deeper into the baseline protocol, the concept of taking some of these DeFi strategies and bringing them into the enterprise is like really smart contract composability. And so tokenization of any business process internal to an organization in which transactions are happening between one organization and another is this opportunity to ingest strategies of DeFi into the enterprise. So one kind of concept or main area of focus for like Paul Brody and the EY team and many others within the industry are like tokenizing invoices across supply chain operations. So this is one of the first places that a lot of people are focused on right now. It's creating the way for enterprise ecosystems to be set up in really a non-decentralized way, if you will. And what we need are the continuous creation within the EEA and other organizations around like tokenization standards, if you will. Mm-hmm. And tokenization standards create coordination within business agreements overall. And so what I'm really excited about is I have experience, or I've done previous consulting around like Microsoft Dynamics 365 implementations across large organizations, Fortune 500 organizations, and understanding how like organizations like Microsoft are at the forefront of taking their Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform and leveraging like these Radish 34 implementations around their CRM and ERP offerings to then utilize things like the baseline protocol to create these tokenized invoices, if you will, mm-hmm. and creating like a set of techniques that are followed in a standard way to utilize the Ethereum mainnet as a common frame of reference between different systems. And those systems are often legacy corporate systems. And so by utilizing the Ethereum public mainnet, that serves as the single source of truth or the reliability and that common source of record that this business logic undeniably indisputably occurred and was agreed upon. And so I believe that we will continue to see these type of business agreements really permeate across organizations in all different ways that we haven't even fathomed or envisioned at any point in time up at right now.
Tokenized invoices. Sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, tokenized invoices. So like the idea of like ERP processes, like the transfer of goods from one to another. Let's say Steve, for example, we're going to make an agreement on 100 units of, I got some flour, organic pumpernickel flour in front of me because I want to make some sourdough bread.
Organic pumpernickel flour.
Yes. Yep. I'm looking at organic pumpernickel flour right now. So let's say we want to make a transaction for 100 bags of these. Well, what happens right now? Let's say I am Walmart, for example, or some large, I shouldn't use the organizational names, some large retailer. Well, it's very costly for smaller suppliers to interface with like their Ariba ERP systems, for example. It's very costly, the coordination problems and the challenges and barriers that smaller organizations have in leveraging like a traditional system and submitting RFPs for this type of good. Well, the idea is utilizing the baseline protocol and is we can have different systems and create a common, like a set of techniques that creates a common store of record to say that undeniably you and I agreed on these terms in an agreement and agreed at this cost for these 100 bags of organic pumpernickel flour. And once that agreement takes place, that goes and is processed on the Ethereum public mainnet. And forever, as we move, from an auditor perspective, from a mitigating risk perspective, as far as, let's say, you're the larger retailer, I'm the small fish, and I have some claim that you didn't hold your agreement in the supply in that invoice. Well, I can look back at that smart contract that was created utilizing baseline protocol and on the public Ethereum mainnet, and we can look back with some code auditors that this in fact happened to these agreed conditions. And in a way, it kind of should help reduce capital expenses and overhead for organizations overall.
And these organizations are looking to do it on the mainnet as opposed to something like Quorum. Are they using typically ZK rollups? Or are they kind of going to have to wait for Ethereum 2.0 to come out? How are they able to manage, or what's the plan of putting that all on the mainnet? Right now, Ethereum sometimes gets to capacity and just having, or is there enough value in each tokenized invoice that it would be okay to pay the fees to have that on the mainnet?
Great question. Undeniably, I believe that organizations should be building on this to understand how they could implement this type of process, because this is where the industry is undeniably moving towards. And these tokenized invoices is something that, even if Ethereum is getting to the level of the ability to transact these and really serve the whole global adoption of these transactions and the overall marketplace, even though Ethereum is still trying to get to that point, I do believe that organizations should absolutely still be building on this to be kind of a first mover or earlier to understanding these type of strategies. But that's where layer 2 comes in, and the whole focus around layer 2 scaling solutions. And I haven't really mentioned our upcoming conference, or within just which we can, of course, segue in a little bit here, on layer 2 and layer 2 scaling solutions. Obviously, that's been a big focus within the Ethereum ecosystem overall. The idea right now is that ingesting these type of layer 2 scaling solutions will help kind of create that stopgap until Ethereum 2 becomes more viable and is able to be leveraged and utilized as we move forward.
Okay, you want to talk about the Trust conference that EA is holding soon? Let's talk about that, because it definitely sounds interesting. I saw a press release about it, and it's kind of for the Asia region.
Yeah, that's right. And so we held our first conference back in July called Ethereum in the Enterprise, and we thought it was quite a success. And so we wanted to continue on with this forward momentum to continue to hold these type of ecosystem events. And this one's more focused and predicated on the Asia Pacific market. We want to pay thanks and give the opportunity to showcase all the vital work that's happened within the Ethereum ecosystem within the Asia Pacific market. And so that, today we're recording this on Wednesday, 11/25. This will be held in the U.S. next Wednesday night, a week from today, the 2nd, December 2nd, and it'll be the morning of for those in the Asia Pacific market, Thursday, the 3rd. And we're quite excited about who we have currently involved in it. We have Hester Pierce. She's going to be talking with our SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce. For those that may not know, some know her as Crypto Mom. She's going to be talking with our EA Chairman of the Board around the need for digital securities and having appropriate regulation on things like issuance and custody. For example, we're going to have Joe Lubin, a fireside chat with him. Joe's going to be talking everything from what a year 2020 was to excitement around ETH 2.0. Actually, the ETH 2.0 beacon chain, or the ETH 2.0 contract just went live earlier this week, which the ecosystem has been incredibly excited about. And this event will actually be the day after the event goes live. We planned this well before we knew that this was going to be the day, but I just had a sneaky feeling or hope that it might end up being somewhat near the launch of ETH 2. And so there's going to be a lot of excitement for the conference. But yeah, we'll have Aya from the Ethereum Foundation talking about ecosystem growth. We're going to have Kevin Owocki and David Hoffman from Bankless. Kevin Owocki from Gitcoin talking about leveraging quadratic funding. So I'm really excited for that one. We'll, of course, have our Executive Director, Dan Burnett, talking about many of the things ongoing within the EEA.
Sounds pretty exciting. You had mentioned ETH 2.0. I guess people could start depositing if they want to be a staker into that about 2 weeks ago, and then just 2 days ago it reached its minimum funding threshold. So it'll be the beacon chain will be live December 1st. So
it's been a long time coming. I say that with nothing but admiration and appreciation in that, I'm not incredibly close to the core developing team and many of these Ethereum 2 development teams, but building standards in the EEA, I have the fortuitous opportunity to work pretty close with a number of the people within the EF, and just a lot of people building out these standards and specifications. And I just have seen the amount of hard work and effort gone into this. And so everyone's just so excited about where we're finally at.
Yeah, there was a little bit of apprehension about whether it would reach the threshold. The first couple of weeks was relatively slow, but then it just exploded, and more and more it crushed the goal, and it will probably continue to keep getting more and more stakies. And this is just the event. It's a web event, and anybody can attend.
Yeah, it's free. Thanks for going back to that, Steve. Free,
sure.
Free and virtual. Anyone can access it. We're going to be conducting it on Umbrella, utilizing like Zoom webinar and whatnot. But
okay.
Yeah.
I think people can go to entethalliance.org to get more info about that.
That's right. Yes.
They need to. Sure. Yeah, definitely some interesting people going to be talking at this event, and if you have time, you should check it out.
Yeah, it's the intent really there is to showcase much of what we're seeing in the industry as some like the important evolutions and momentum that's taking place. And so, my hope and intent is that it's a good showcase of many of the things that are most prevalent to the industry right now. And again, the opportunity to showcase all the great work happening in Asia Pacific, because I think that is a market that some in the West don't necessarily realize how much is being built there and how much focus on Ethereum and the overall enterprise blockchain ecosystem is transpiring in the greater Asia Pacific region.
You think it's bigger than the North America and Europe?
That's hard to say. And again, in my position, I get the opportunity to see how many organizations are leveraging Ethereum, and it's quite immense. And so I don't know if I could say that it's larger, but I do know that I think maybe from a governmental perspective, they may be, I know that I believe the U.S. regulators are very close to what's ongoing and understand very closely what's happening. But I also we've seen momentum within the Asia Pacific region around further announcements around like CBDCs. For example, Consensus has just recently announced some terrific work around CBDCs.
It's collateralized debt-based CBDC.
Central bank digital currencies.
Okay.
So just as they kind of create their genesis of CBDCs and how they're going to run them, Thailand, Hong Kong, and Australia are all working with Consensus around Ethereum-backed CBDCs. The first national CBDC that was launched was in the Bahamas called the Sand Dollar. I think that was just launched like a month ago, and that was on Ethereum as well.
CBDCs, central bank. Sorry,
that's okay.
Yeah.
There are how many acronyms? How many different nomenclatures?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned like Galileo platforms, a few other companies in the space. Is there any things that you find most interesting in the space that we didn't already talk about that has you most excited about what's going on?
Yeah, and I know as soon as we depart here, there's going to be 10 or so that I think of that I'm really excited about. But I don't mean to be redundant, but I believe so much in this concept around enterprise DeFi and how much and how DeFi is going to permeate within the enterprise. And this is going to be the primary mechanism and reason that enterprises adopt decentralized strategies faster than any other.
2021 is the year of enterprise DeFi, huh?
That's right.
I thank you for coming on the show. It's been certainly enlightening. I hope people check out the webinar or the event that's coming up. Check out what's going on at the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Jack?
No, I just recommend, on behalf of the EEA, we welcome any organizations to join within the EEA. And if there are certain challenges that you have within the organization that you're looking to, from an Ethereum perspective, if Ethereum is important to the future of your business, and if there's challenges that you guys have within it, we recommend to join the EEA and to work with these organizations, like-minded organizations, to kind of solve the challenges that many have solved up to this point in time. So, and I always recommend, if you're looking to get involved and you're not sure from a crypto perspective or a blockchain perspective, there are tons of opportunities within Ethereum development. And so feel free to reach out to me at any point in time, and I'd be more than happy to help point you in a direction.
All right, Jack, thanks for coming on the show so much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, folks, so there you have it. I'd like to thank Jack and Steve for doing this podcast. I do apologize for not getting this out sooner. There was an event they were mentioning that happened last week sometime, but we had quite a few episodes to get out. I didn't get to it quite in time. Hopefully they'll have other events in the future that you can check out. Yeah, so that's it for now. Check out theblockchainshow.com if you want to look at some past episodes or get in contact with us. Until next week, goodbye.